Eric Blake, let's see. Peace and long life, Aurora President Bill Whittle. Thank you. Although I think you're talking about Daniel Altier. You've spoken at times of your being an apprentice writer of sorts during the last days of Cheers. Let's say the show didn't have a big and, in my admittedly not so humble opinion, disappointing finale in season 11, but instead went on. How would you have written for Sam and Norman, Cliff, and all the rest, and possibly even Diane? It's an interesting question. Um, uh, I wrote. I think I wrote 4 scripts for them, but I wrote 2 that were actually submitted to that not only that were submitted, but that were that I had a meeting with the writing staff over. 2 spec scripts, and both of them in Cheers and just about every other sitcom, the structure is very simple. There's an A story and a B story. And you do the A story, and then you cut away to the B story, and that allows time to pass in the A story, and then you go back to the B story. It's back and forth, back and forth. It's nothing to it, really. It's just, if you think about it, you'll see that every one of these sitcoms is basically, you've got the A and the B. So, in both of the scripts that I submitted, both of the scripts had Frasier A stories and Cliff B stories, because I thought they were by far the most interesting and funny characters. In one of them, I remember the stories. I just don't remember how they were paired. One of the A stories, one of the Frasier stories was that Frasier was actually had his name in consideration for president of the American Psychiatric Association. And Lilith had said that he can no longer go to Cheers because it's so lowbrow, he didn't want to be seen there. And that it was bad for his chances to be seen in such a low-life place. The other Frasier A plot that I liked an awful lot, I liked very, very much, in fact. I think Frasier and Lilith had had a child. It seems to be the case as I remember. Anyway, my A story was that Frasier and Lilith's kid goes to school and they give him an IQ test and he scores a perfect 100. In other words, he has absolutely average IQ. When Frasier and Lilith's IQ is like 140, 130, something like that. He takes an IQ test, and instead of having the most highly recorded IQ score of all time, he comes in with a perfect 100. Your son is absolutely average when it comes to IQ. I just thought that was hilarious, and like all good comedy, not only hilarious but really sad and distressing in some kind of way. So those were the A plots, and then the 2 B plots I did were both Cliff B plots. One of them was actually a Cliff and Woody B plot. Woody is goes to an audition and he gets a role because Woody was an actor on the show. He gets a role, small role, as a mailman, and he wants to hang out with Cliff for a day or two and learn the ropes. And I thought that was a lot of opportunities there. And then when the other one I just remember this very clearly because it was the second script, and they were asking me about ideas. And that's a stressful situation to sit in a room full of these people who are so bloody brilliantly funny. And they said, "What else you got? Got any other ideas?" And I said, "Have you guys ever done anything where Cliff Clavin really, really desperately needed something in the mail?" And they just started laughing, because, the U.S. Postal Service is not known for its rapidity. And that story ended up being there was an eclipse coming. It was a solar eclipse, and Cliff needed. It had to be something that could not be moved. The joke required that this had to be in his hands by this date. If it was a day late or 2 days late, there had to be consequences. It had to be there. He had to have it. And basically, Cliff goes from being Mr. U.S. Postal Service to just utterly trashing the mail because this filter that he's waiting for his telescope so he can watch this solar eclipse, the partial solar eclipse or whatever. is sitting in a warehouse, and he actually tries to break into the U.S. mail office where he works because the damn mail couldn't deliver this thing on time. I just thought that was really funny. But that's basically what it consists of. And I've said this before, but just it bears repeating because I never forgot it. One of these producers, story editors, said to me, and this is almost verbatim, and it's just such a compliment. I'm embarrassed to repeat it, but these guys said to me on a couple of occasions, they said, "Okay, so let's talk about this whole little transaction here, Bill." Yeah, he said, "This is really, really funny stuff. It's very, very good, but you got to ditch it." I said, "Okay, why?" Just so I don't do it again. He says, "It's not moving the story." And I remember watching much, far lesser comedies that would you would see their the previews. So tonight on NBC, and the whole preview was built around one joke, and the joke was not very good at all, often very poor, and I remember thinking, Cheers has so much discipline and so much talent that they can afford to throw away funny stuff because it's not moving the story. Merlin says he was going to watch an eclipse with a telescope. Yes, actually. I have looked at the sun through a telescope, and I looked at the sun through a telescope in the very dangerous way. When I first got my first reflector telescope, I want to say it was a 4-inch reflector, Tasco, I think, you would get your eyepieces, and then there would be a moon filter, which would be a piece of like green glass, cut down the light on the moon. And there was also a solar filter, which was a much denser, but about the same thickness piece of glass. And you'd put this thing, you'd screw it into the eyepiece, put the eyepiece into the telescope, turn the telescope on the sun, and now you can see sunspots and all the rest of it. What I didn't know until much later was that these things were terribly dangerous, because what it's doing is it's taking all of the light from the sun and focusing it on this one little piece of glass, and these things had been known to crack. So what they went to was something called a full aperture solar filter, which sat over the front of the telescope and cut the light before it went into the telescope. And so yeah, you can look at the sun with a little telescope. But I think that was actually the payoff too, come to think of it. It's a long, long time ago now, long time ago, 88, 89, 90, somewhere around there. But I think that was the payoff, was that he couldn't get in to get this thing. And then finally he comes in the next day, and he's got this eye patch over his eye, and kind of like a sunburn, something like that. His filter didn't arrive, and he made his own, something like that. It's been a long time. Anyway, that was fun.